Blake Shelton has always been one of those artists who keeps it real. Whether he's cracking jokes on The Voice or sharing glimpses of his life on the road, the country superstar never shies away from giving fans a peek behind the curtain. But when it comes to what happens just before he walks on stage, the quiet moments before the crowd goes wild, Shelton recently offered a rare look into that personal ritual, and it's not what most would expect from one of country music's biggest showmen. The Oklahoma native, known for his laid-back charm and signature mix of humor and sincerity, revealed that his pre-show playlist sets the tone for every performance. Rather than blasting hype tracks or party anthems, Shelton's go-to music choice is surprisingly sentimental, a blend of nostalgic country tunes that ground him before the bright lights and roaring applause. According to Shelton, those last few minutes before he hits the stage are sacred. "People might think I'm back there doing shots or getting pumped up," he said during a backstage interview ahead of his latest tour stop. "But honestly, I'm just trying to center myself. I listen to stuff that reminds me why I started doing this in the first place." That stuff includes a mix of classic country legends, George Strait, Conway Twitty, and Vince Gill among them, and a few contemporary artists who Shelton says capture the same heart and storytelling that drew him to the genre as a kid. "I always play George Strait's The Chair. That song never gets old for me," he admitted with a smile. "It reminds me that country music is supposed to tell a story. No matter how big the stage is or how loud the crowd gets, it all comes back to that." The ritual, Shelton explained, isn't just about calming pre-show nerves. It's about reconnecting with the roots of who he is as an artist. "When you've been doing this for as long as I have, it's easy to get caught up in the schedule, the noise, the travel," he said. "But before every show, I take about 10 minutes with my headphones on. I listen to a few songs that just make me feel like me again, before the fame, before the voice, before everything." It's a surprisingly humble sentiment from a performer who has spent decades at the top of his game. Since debuting in 2001 with his breakout hit, Austin, Shelton has earned multiple chart toppers, toured the world, and become a household name. Yet even with the fame, he says the nerves still hit before every performance. "Every single night," he confessed. "You'd think after all these years it would get easier, but it doesn't. There's always that moment, right before you walk on, where your heart's racing and you're thinking, man, I hope they still like me. That's when the music helps. It reminds me why I'm here." Fans might be surprised to learn that Shelton's pre-show soundtrack doesn't always include his own songs. "I never listen to my own stuff before going out there," he said with a laugh. "That would feel weird, like I'm trying to pump myself up with me. I'd rather listen to the people who made me love country in the first place." That love runs deep. Growing up in Ada, Oklahoma, Shelton was surrounded by the sound of country radio and the influences of storytelling artists who shaped his own musical identity. "When I was a kid, we had one of those old radios that sat on the kitchen counter," he recalled. "It was always on, and that's where I first heard people like Hank Williams Jr. and Earl Thomas Conley. Those songs got into my bones, and they never left." It's that connection between the boy who fell in love with country music and the man who now headlines stadiums that Shelton tries to maintain through his backstage ritual. "It's my way of staying grounded," he said. "Because once those lights come on, everything moves so fast. You go from being this guy in jeans and boots to this entertainer in front of thousands of people. I never want to forget the reason I started singing in the first place." And while he may have a soft spot for country classics, Shelton says his playlist occasionally gets a modern twist. "Every now and then, I'll throw in something unexpected," he shared. "Like Post Malone's new country stuff. I think that's great. Or I'll listen to Chris Stapleton because that guy's voice just knocks me out every time. But it's always something that keeps me connected to the emotion of it, not just the energy." Shelton's reflective side might surprise fans who know him best for his fun-loving, jokester personality on The Voice, the long-running singing competition where he reigned as a coach for 23 seasons before stepping away in 2023. But the singer admits that stepping off that show gave him more time to focus on his music and his mental space in ways he hadn't been able to for years. "When you're juggling everything, TV, touring, family, it's easy to lose track of the small things that used to mean a lot," he said. "Now I've got the time to slow down and appreciate it again." Listening to music before I go on stage used to be something I did without thinking. Now, it's something I do with purpose. Part of that renewed focus comes from his life offstage, too. Married to Gwen Stefani since 2021, Shelton often credits his wife for helping him maintain balance and perspective. Gwen's not just a pop superstar, she's got this deep appreciation for music in general, he said. We talk about it all the time. She has her rituals before shows, too. She listens to stuff that grounds her, and it made me realize how important that is for me, too. The two have even shared their backstage playlists on occasion. Sometimes she'll sneak one of her songs into my pre-show mix just to mess with me, Shelton said with a grin. I'll be halfway through listening to Vince Gill, and suddenly Hollaback Girl comes on. That's her sense of humor. It definitely loosens me up before I walk out there. Despite the laughter, Shelton's approach to performing has matured over the years. What once might have been about adrenaline and excitement has evolved into something more mindful and intentional. When I was younger, I'd be running around backstage, cracking jokes, having beers, just hyped to get out there, he said. Now it's quieter. I've learned to appreciate the calm before the storm. That calm is often the last thing fans would imagine from a performer whose concerts are packed with energy, sing-alongs, and a party-like atmosphere. But as Shelton points out, it's that contrast that makes the performance special. If I walk out there already amped to 100, there's nowhere left to go, he explained. I like to start grounded and let the energy build naturally with the crowd. That's when the magic happens. His approach seems to be working. Shelton's current tour has been met with sold-out shows and rave reviews from fans who say he seems more relaxed and connected than ever. It's funny because people keep saying, Blake looks like he's having more fun than ever. And they're right, he said. I think it's because I'm more present now. I'm not just performing the songs, I'm feeling them. For Shelton, that feeling, the emotional connection to the music, the crowd, and the stories he tells, is what keeps him going after more than 2 decades in the spotlight. At the end of the day, it's not about how many shows you've done or how big the arena is, he said. It's about that moment when you step on stage and you hear the crowd sing the words back to you. That never gets old. As for what's currently topping his pre-show playlist, Shelton laughed when asked but didn't hesitate to share. Right now, it's a lot of old-school George Jones, some Patti Loveless, and a little bit of Brooks and Dunn. And every once in a while I'll throw in Happy Anywhere just because it reminds me of Gwen. It puts me in a good mood. That mix of nostalgia, emotion, and authenticity is what fans have come to love most about Blake Shelton, both the performer and the man. While his sense of humor and laid-back charm remain front and center, it's his honesty and humility that continue to resonate the loudest. I think people can tell when you're being real, Shelton reflected. When I walk out there, I want them to feel like they're hanging out with an old friend, not watching some untouchable celebrity. That's why I listen to those songs before I go out. They remind me of where I came from and who I really am. For Blake Shelton, that's the secret, not just to a great show, but to a lasting career. A little country, a little soul, and a whole lot of heart. And as long as he has those familiar tunes in his ears before the lights go up, fans can count on seeing the same down-to-earth Blake they've loved for years. Because before the spotlight hits, and before the first chord rings out, there's a man with his headphones on, listening to the songs that made him who he is, and getting ready to share that feeling with the world all over again.